Good afternoon. It's just after 1 o'clock. We're back on May 8th for a council session to continue our work sessions on the FY25 operating budget and FY25 to 30 capital improvements program. We are going to continue with our agenda with item number 21, the Office of the County Executive. And let me turn to the Government Operations Fiscal Policy Chair, Vice President Stewart.
Great, thank you. So the FY25 operating budget recommended by the County Executive would increase by 2.8% the Office of the County Executive's budget. We do have 3 items that are on the new and enhanced list that the GO committee discussed. The first is an addition of 3 FTEs to the Business Center team. This was actually also reviewed by the Economic Development Committee, and both committees concurred with the proposed addition of 2 business liaisons for the Small Business Support Services NDA and 1 Economic Development Program Manager for the Business Center team. Descriptions of all the duties and responsibilities of these roles can be found in your packet. The second item was the addition of 2 FTEs to internal audit. The GO committee concurs with the proposed addition of 2 investigative analysts to the internal audits department of the Office of the County Executive. We discussed what these roles really would be, what people in these roles would be doing, and it's really about implementation and compliance. Given the increase in the number of reports from the Inspector General, we want to, as was described to us, the County Exec's Office wants to make sure that they are keeping up with and complying with those recommendations, as well as the recommendations from internal audit. And so they are requesting 2 additional FTEs. Finally, there is the addition of $50,000 allocation for the BizNow Biotechnology Conference. Montgomery County will be hosting this conference in September of 2024. A $50,000 sponsorship is required to relocate the conference from Philadelphia, and the county will be hosting this event. It will take place in the North Bethesda area. It is anticipated this will bring together 800 to 1,000 tech companies, academics, government officials, and related persons annually at the conference. And that is the recommendations from the GO committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Vice President. That is the committee recommendation. I don't see any colleagues wishing to speak. All those in favor of the committee recommendation on the Office of the County Executive, please indicate by raising your hand. That is unanimous, 10-0. Thank you to the Office of the County Executive for being here. We're going to move on to item 22. This is the budget for Small Business Support Services, NDA. And let me call on the Economic Development Committee Chair, Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez.
Good afternoon. The Economic Development Committee had a robust and exciting committee sessions on many items that really speak highly of how our county is really working hard to ensure that we are a welcoming county for businesses, and we are on the right trajectory to become #1 when it comes to life sciences, and you'll see that through the report. The first item, as indicated by the County Council President, item 22 on the packet, Small Business Support Services, NDA. Our recommendation went to the GO committee, which was just explained. I don't think we need to vote again because we just did, right? So we are adding 3 positions, but let me just go really quickly on it, but maybe just review it, but we just voted. As you all know, just for background, for those who may not remember, the executive's recommendation for the Business Center team and the Small Business Services NDA, we review them as a joint item, as the NDA is managed by the Business Center team. And again, Mr. Smith, as I mentioned in committee, you and your team have done such an amazing job with our business community and working with each one of us on the County Council every time we hear somebody screaming for help. So the Small Business Support Service, NDA, was established to provide funding to support and augment the Business Center's team's efforts throughout the county. So the committee voted to approve the county executive's recommendation of nearly $2.5 million for the Small Business Support Services NDA, which includes an I always have a hard time saying the word, inflationary adjustments, a compensation adjustments, and 3 new positions, 1 program manager, and 2 additional business liaisons, which we just approved with a GO committee. Just for background, the 2 new business liaisons are contained within the Small Business Support Services NDA, and they will add 2 business liaisons to the existing 4 liaisons, meaning that we'll end up having 6 if this passes, which I hope it does. And then 1 new program manager position, which will be contained within the Business Center team, okay? And this new position will support the Business Center's general needs to administer its programs, address gaps, and provide coverage. So that's basically what the packet is about. Mr. Ali, if there's anything else that you would like to highlight? No. And the county executive team, Mr. Smith, you have done such a great job. Maybe you would like to share a couple of things. I'm just saying, this is a time to shine.
I appreciate it. Gene Smith, Montgomery County Business Center Manager. And yes, Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez, we've shined because we have a great team who's out there working day and night to help community and help our businesses. So I think I'm going to read the room and not go too long. And just say again, we have a great team of business liaisons. Currently, we have 4 hired. We're hoping to see 2 more, as the executive recommended in this budget, so that we can cover more areas of the county. Currently, we're in East County, Silver Spring, Mid County, and then our new hire coming on board. We'll see where they end up. But there are plenty of areas in this county, such as Up County and Germantown, Gaithersburg, and Boyds, as well as along the Rockville Pike, where we have not done as much outreach as we would like. And so we see these business liaisons being able to fill that gap. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you. Appreciate that. We have 2 colleagues in the queue. Councilmember Balcom.
Thank you. And thank you again for what you do. I think that this is a fantastic group, and they do phenomenal work, and they can certainly use more help. So I fully support the new FTEs. And I did just want to mention that this is a shift in funds from the county executive's office to the NDA. And ideally, and I support that shift, but ideally, we should look at how we can create a mechanism where all the general fund economic development expenditures are in one place. We talked about that in the committee. It's very difficult to look at our budget to determine how much we invest in economic development. So let's look at that throughout the year, and then when we start thinking about the budget for next year, how we can manage to get everything in one place. But I fully support this. Thank you.
Appreciate that and agree with the committee's discussion on trying to consolidate as much as possible support services, particularly for our small businesses, which really is a core focus of the executive team in the second floor. Councilmember Joando.
Thank you. As I say, good to see you, Mr. Smith. Good to see you, Mr. Hartman-Espada, and the team. We talked about this when you were on this side of the street, just the challenge, but also the really important need of identifying and knowing who our businesses are and what their needs are. Obviously, I'll be very supportive of the additional liaisons as they're on the ground working with businesses. But could you speak to the effort of we had talked about in years past potentially funding an effort to get a deeper dive into who we are as businesses and different industries. We have some sense, but particularly for the smaller businesses, it can be more of a challenge, and how your team is working on that or is thinking about that.
Sure. Thank you, Councilmember Joando. Happy to answer that. So as we shared with the Economic Development Committee, we did purchase the client relationship management system through RFP this year. And we're doing that in partnership with the regional areas. They're a part of the system as well. And rather than trying to just buy data or fill in data, the team is filling that out as they go out and meet businesses to fill out that story a little bit in more detail, rather than trying to second guess or use public data that is very high level. And so as we shared during the Economic Development Committee, we see that as a multi-year project in order to have a better understanding of the small business ecosystem in the county.
So you won't be using big data, or you won't just be using big data?
We won't just be using it. There are other big datas that we can use to augment those, but again, many of the small businesses don't have to touch the county
Right.
through licensing and other means, and they exist purely to do their business. And the only way we're going to find them is if we go out there and meet them. And so I think using all of our data sources, working with Mr. Tippett and County Stat, as well as working with Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation, I think we can put a bigger picture together of what the ecosystem looks like. But a lot of our work will be day-to-day, face-to-face with businesses and using that to fill in the gaps.
Mr. Harmon Espada.
And thank you, Mr. Joando. And just to add to what Mr. Smith was mentioning, we are aware that some of our partners are using platforms that have data on businesses. We've worked with them. We've seen demonstrations of the program. It's these systems draw data from somewhere else, and sometimes it's more efficient to go to that somewhere else to get the data. But we're evaluating how best to mine the data, both in person and with the sources that are available out there.
I appreciate that, and I know the Economic Development Committee will follow up on this, and I'm eager because when we get into various programs and we want to help, we have to continue, and it's a continual effort, but work to build out who and where they are. They're the lion's share of our businesses. They need support, and then when we have opportunities, as you know, when we had grant programs, we need that to then be able to communicate with them. So look forward to talking about it more. Appreciate the work that's been done, and very supportive of giving you more tools to continue it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sales.
Thank you, and very happy with the work that has been happening through your newly created department. I know during committee we talked about the businesses and how we would track and monitor what small businesses we have and how we are engaging with them. And I did mention the comptroller, since our businesses have to file annual taxes, it's easy to reconcile the data with whom we're talking with and who is actually registered as a business here in the county. And as we're looking to expand where the two new liaisons will be housed, it may be helpful to see where these businesses are located using that readily available data, and then documenting that we had 300 face-to-face connections in 2024, 880 face-to-face business connections in 2023. I mean, with the additional staff, it would be helpful to see who we're actually meeting with. Are they growing since connecting with your entity? Or it would be good to see what sort of additional information we can learn from these interactions and the support we empower this department with. So thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other colleagues wishing to speak. Just for clarity's sake, I think we will take a vote on this because it's listed as a separate item, even though it's really the inflationary increases, which we already took up separately, and the impact on the county executive office, which we just voted on previously. But just for clarity's sake, all those in favor of this recommendation? That is unanimous. Appreciate that. And let's move on to item 23. This is the BioHub Maryland and Montgomery County NDA, and let me turn it back to the Economic Development Chair.
This is another very exciting one. As you all may know, the BioHub Maryland is a Maryland Tech Council initiative, and we have Ms. Kelly Schultz coming to committee to testify, and it was very nice to see her there, very active in engaging with us. The BioHub will be the exclusive provider of the National Institute of Bioprocessing Research and Training, which trains students and working professionals on fundamentals of the life science industry, such as biomanufacturing concepts, vaccine manufacturing, and so on. Again, goes side by side with requests to become #1 in the nation on the life science industry. The BioHub Maryland will be a 5-year commitment with the assumption that the county's contributions will increase by 3% on an annual basis for the 5-year term. The committee unanimously voted to approve the county executive's recommendation of about $500,000 for the new BioHub Maryland NDA. The item is placed on the new and enhanced programs list, so we do have to vote. The county's contribution will support rent and administrative expenses at the BioHub Maryland facility, and the Maryland Tech Council mentioned during committee that they have identified spaces already, and they're ready to hire staff at the beginning of work in the early FY25. With that, Mr. Ali, did I miss anything? No. Mr. Ken Harmon, is there anything else that you would like to add?
No, thank you so much. We're very excited by this opportunity. It adds to our ecosystem. That includes Montgomery College, USG. I was just at an event earlier today with WorkSource Montgomery, and they had folks from the Embassy of Japan visiting to learn about how we do workforce development here. So exciting opportunity. Look forward to your support.
Yes, I'm so sorry I couldn't make it, but I sent Kathy on my behalf. With that, I yield back.
Thank you. This is very exciting. Many of us have had conversations about this with state partners. I want to give a shout out to the governor and the governor's office, Manny Welsh in particular, among others in the governor's office, who helped shepherd this through on the state side, which is a major effort of the General Assembly and the governor. It is intended to be a multi-year commitment, which is great, which we're looking forward to, and for ongoing state support. I think this is part of the broader state-county partnerships and our partnerships with our major state public research institutions to have the type of research triangle and research connections between Baltimore and College Park and Montgomery County that we've always envisioned and haven't quite seen come to fruition until recent years. But exciting things are happening. Let me turn it over to Vice President Stewart.
Great. I just want to say how excited I am also about this. I think it's a terrific opportunity, and I really appreciate our state partners and everybody for moving this forward. And Mr. Hartman-Espada, I don't want to get the cart before the horse, but in thinking about the incentives, the training for students and other things, are we thinking about ways to incentivize students to stay here once they're done with the training program?
Excellent suggestion. And I'll answer in two pieces. And piece number one, Maryland Tech Council has already spoken to companies that are local here in Montgomery County about utilizing our training for their needs, or the training that they're going to be offering, because it's very specific, and it's geared towards folks with a high school diploma. There's also there's a need, and Anthony Featherstone and I have talked about. There's a lot of programs out there serving our businesses. So not only how do we package it as one ecosystem, and he's done tremendous work already with a no wrong door approach, sharing information, but also working with real companies here in Montgomery County about their needs. So we'll do some thinking about how do we make that connection with people who are in these programs to get them to stay here, and look forward to your feedback on that.
Great. Another way to do that is make sure they have good jobs here and good job opportunities, as well as good housing, vibrant quality of life. And so all of the work that we do and are doing is part of that broader calculation of how do we not only train but retain and continue to attract people to come to Montgomery County and stay in Montgomery County. Okay, all those in favor of this exciting item, please indicate by raising your hand. The BioHub Maryland at Montgomery County, that is unanimous. We're going to move on to item 24 on our agenda. This is the UM3 Institute for Health Computing NDA, and this is part and parcel to those connections between Baltimore, College Park, and Montgomery County, and making sure that we are partnering at the state and the local level. Let me turn it over to the Economic Development Committee Chair again.
Thank you. This is, again, another exciting one, and thank you, Mr. Lewis, for coming up front. So another unanimous support, basically UM3 Institute for Health Computing NDA. The committee voted to approve the county executive's recommendation of $6.3 million for the UM3 Institute for Health and Computing. The item is placed on the new and enhanced programs list. Then Montgomery County has a 5-year MOU with UM3 IHC. The county provided 15 million seed funding back in November of 2022, if you all remember, and committed to contributing 5 million towards the cost of operations for 5 years, beginning FY24, for a total of $40 million. It's an investment. After 6 years, by FY2029, the institute is expected to be self-supporting. So keep that in mind. In FY24, the council approved $3.7 million, as some of the funding was intended for lease payments, and the institute had not identified a space when the council considered the request last year. Things have changed. In FY25, the committee voted to approve the county executive's recommendation that the $1.3 million delayed from last year, FY24, be added on top of the $5 million the institute was anticipating to receive. So that's why we have a $6.3 million in the rec list. It is the committee understanding that the funding for FY26 through the end of the MOU term in FY29 will be $5 million annually. Did I miss anything, Mr. Lewis?
No, I think you covered that. Thank you very much.
Mr. Ali, anything else?
Just to clarify that the 1.3 million is on the new and enhanced
Yes.
programs list, not 2.6.
Yes, that's right. 1.3. With that, I yield.
Appreciate that. Councilmember Joando.
Thank you. Really excited about this. As chair of the Education Culture Committee, I'm thrilled to see the progress for the health computing. UM3 is a major milestone, a year in. Hard to believe. I remember sitting at the table when we were all there, and it's obviously a priority for the governor and the state, and so really excited about that, as it's really going to be a big, and is a catalyst for us, our local biotech and life sciences, but also creating a pipeline in the fields of AI. We were talking about AI earlier, and machine learning, data science, so just really, really excited about it. I'm very supportive of restoring the 1.3 and putting that on the list, and I'll work hard. I think it's important that we do that. I know that was delayed, but we need to make sure you get that to you to keep our commitment. And just thank you for your team. I think it's another example of, we hear a lot about Montgomery County, but we are on the cutting edge of something that is on the cutting edge, and it will benefit us and I think the country and the world going forward. So very proud of the partnership and appreciate all your work.
Thank you, council member, and thanks for your support and the support of all of the council members. It's really been amazing.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Appreciate that. The theme, Montgomery County, we like to do well and do good at the same time, and this is a good way for us to continue to do that. Councilmember Balcom.
Thank you. Yeah, this is very exciting. But I would like to talk about the 1.3 in terms of it being contractual and it's a commitment, and I don't see it as discretionary. The reason that we didn't give the full $5 million last year was it was a timing issue, and so we only gave the 3.7, but contractually, we owe this money contractually. I would like to make a motion that this go in the base budget, as we've been doing this week. It is contractual.
Moved by Councilmember Balcom, seconded by Vice President Stewart. The idea being that this is the $5 million commitment. We didn't make the full $5 million commitment because of timing last year, and so really it's $10 million 2-year commitment to true up what the commitment would have been. So this would true that up so that the full $10 million would be done. So moved and seconded. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. That is unanimous. So this will not be on the new and enhanced program list. Will be included in the base. I just will note the 1.3 million should be noted as one-time funding in the base. So for future consideration, the baseline is not 6.3 million for this item. It's 5. So just if it could be reflected as one time, that would be helpful. Okay. That is the all we have on this. So we vote on the amendment. Can we vote on the item itself? I mean, it's one and the same, but all those in favor indicate by raising your hand. Okay, that is item 24, UM3, Institute for Health Computing. Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis, for all of your terrific work on this issue. We're going to move on to item 25, WorkSource Montgomery non-departmental account. We're talking about our our workforce. This is our primary vehicle to address those issues in Montgomery County. Let me turn it over to the Economic Development Chair.
This is another very exciting item, and as you all know, WorkSource Montgomery is very special. I think we're the envy of the entire nation. Not everybody has a center as we do in Montgomery County. The committee unanimously voted to approve the county executive's recommendation of almost $2.5 million, which included 3% inflationary adjustments placed on the enhanced list, plus $10,000 for Summer Rise. I know who's going to be happy over there. And he's not even paying attention. And nearly I was giving you a shout out.
I was to confirm with the clerk.
Oh, is that right?
He was paying attention the other way.
I see. I'll keep that in mind. And nearly $200,000 for programming at the Montgomery County Correctional Facility. Let me stop there for 1 second. WorkSource Montgomery historically received almost $200,000 from the Department of Correction and Rehabilitation to support dual-track reentry program at Montgomery County Correctional Facility. Recently, WorkSource Montgomery learned from OMB, are they here? OMB, there you are, that our county correctional facility would not fund the program and did not receive the funding it had anticipated, so WorkSource filled the gap to keep the program running in FY24. So for now, the staff noted that without the $200,000 in FY25, the program will cease on June 30th, 2024, and that's why the committee unanimously supported adding this fund. Before I continue with the last item, Mr. Ali, did I miss anything?
No, I just I realized that the packet failed to note that both of those items were placed on the list, just for your awareness.
Good. And I'm going to keep going then. And then we also voted to restore $150,000 for the Coding Our Way Home program. This indicated by the Coding Our Way Home will be used for broadly for programming in the Justice Empowering Jobs Center. Very important. During the FY24 budget discussions, the council cut $158,000 in funding for this program. As WorkSource Montgomery was still working to establish the Justice Empowerment Job Center, then they stated that the WorkSource Montgomery stated during the committee that the Job Center is now finally open and running and has the capacity to incorporate the programming that was cut last year, and that's why the Economic Development Committee unanimously approved this enhancement. Anything else that Mr. Ali, that you would like to add in here? I yield back.
Thank you. Councilmember Girondo.
Just want to thank the chair for her praise and heap it right back on you for this item, and just the WorkSource Montgomery team, just for all that you're doing, and always very excited as we're about to enter Summer Rise season, and really appreciate that you've been able to braid that funding and use DOL funding and our own money. That's something that has happened over the years. And so just excited to continue to see the connectivity to the jobs that are available, but our young people in particular. So thank you for the work, and excited to support this item. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Councilmember Mink.
Thank you. Just wanted to appreciate my colleagues for their work on this, and to appreciate WorkSource Montgomery, and just wanted to share that as a district council member, I and my team have found WorkSource Montgomery on the ground to be exceedingly helpful and responsive, including in moments of crisis when we had businesses that were moving or being shut down or changed in some kind of way, and we would suddenly have a bunch of employees who need to find new jobs, and we would reach out to WorkSource and they would just take care of it. It was amazing. Bringing them in to work with highly impacted communities, with newcomer communities, partnering with community members to make sure there was adequate translation. They've been very creative in their use of resources and community partnerships to make things happen. And so I think a lot of that work, it's easy for it to go unseen. And so I just want to make sure that for all of my colleagues, who I know many have experienced the same thing personally as well, but also for the public, to know that there is really tremendous on-the-ground work in the communities happening under this line item. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other colleagues wishing to speak on this. With appreciation to WorkSource Montgomery and all of our partners. All those in favor of this item, please indicate by raising your hand. That is unanimous on the WorkSource Montgomery non-departmental account NDA. We're going to move on to work session on the Economic Development Fund, the EDF, and kick it back to the Economic Development Committee Chair.
For this one, let's start by, we added the purple line item in this packet. So the committee did not discuss or vote on the county executives recommended grants for small businesses impacted by the purple line construction in the amount of $900,000 in one-time funding. The new program was submitted to council as part of the March 27th amendments to the FY25 budget. That's why we didn't discuss it. According to the county executive, and I'm going to yield to Mr. Herman, Ken Herman, to add more things if he thinks there's a need. And according to the executive, the small businesses along Bonifaz Street in Silver Spring are being adversely impacted by construction of the purple line. We do know that. Specifically, these businesses are experiencing significant disruption due to the proximity to and type of construction occurring. To mitigate the impact of this disruption, he's recommending a one-time grant program of almost $1 million to provide financial assistance to these impacted small businesses. The funds will be budgeted in the Economic Development Fund, and the Montgomery County Business Centers will administer the program. I'm going to yield back. I fully support that. Just put that in under.
Okay, that did not come with the committee recommendation because it came after the fact, so we're going to take that up separately. So we'll do that first and then go into the committee's recommendation. So I'll open it up to colleagues who want to comment on that item. Councilmember Sales.
So I just had a question about the EDF. Are we?
Yeah, let's hold off on the committee recommendation if it's okay, and take up this purple line item since it didn't go before the committee.
That's fine.
And then we'll come back to that. We'll let the
Perfect.
chair
Okay.
give the report out and then yield back to colleagues if that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you. Glad we're taking this up because, I want to give a shout out to the District 20 team. Namely Delegate Janelle Wilkins, who had been working tirelessly over the last number of years and under the previous administration to get these funds allocated. And then after they were allocated, she had to work and push to get them dispersed. And that's just the state funds. And so when we have been in the community, there has been an incredible need for more. The limited number of funds that the state provides have been on a one-time basis. They have been minuscule, but that is all that has been provided. And so I want to learn a little bit more, since it's the first conversation, about how this will work with the state program and who will be dispersing them. So.
Sure. I'm also joined by Mr. Bigelow, who's the program manager for this. And so the state funds have already been dispersed. They provided 2 tranches, and we have dispersed them all. And so those funds have gotten to the businesses that have been impacted by the purple line. This one specifically will be administered by our team, and it's, as the executive's recommendation, it's for businesses along Bonifaz Street, which is a much smaller universe to work with. And so our team, who already has a lot of contacts with those businesses as we administered the state program, already have them in the queue, being able to reach out to them and work with them. And so there won't be any application. It'll just be, we'll go straight and work with the businesses along Bonifaz Street to implement this in the executive's recommendation.
Appreciate that. So unlike the state grant, which used an outside administrating entity, this will be done by your office?
That's correct. And I'll just note that the state, I believe there were 3 tranches of state funding. The first one was administered by the Latino Economic Development Center. Our team did administer the second 2 rounds. So that is part of the reason why we'll be able to do this one pretty quickly, because we already have had feet on the street and know these businesses.
I'm going to keep going unless there's anyone else. But regarding the funding, the state grant had a ceiling for how much could be received. Is there a similar limit?
There is no ceiling for this, but to keep it simple, we'll be using lease information for these businesses to calculate a quick grant for them. But there is no ceiling other than what's the amount of their lease over the year.
Okay. Because again, the amount that came from the state was, I think, $5,000 or $10,000, which in some cases barely paid a rent, or maybe 2 months' rent, if that. And then understand the focus on Bonifant. You know, anyone who walks by or drives by understands the disproportionate impact that street has faced and those business owners. But what about the consideration for other parts of Long Branch or Langley Park on the border?
So the executive heard the cries from Bonifant Street, and given the limited resources, decided to start there. Certainly, if after we administer this for a while and the $900,000 doesn't seem to be stretched very far, we can come back to the executive and council to see if it can go further next year. And we always entertain being able to assist more businesses. But again, the executive's recommendation was to start there, given the severe impact for those businesses along that specific part of the corridor.
Okay. Last point I'll make is that clearly supportive of this. The county needed to step up a long time ago, and it was a matter of logistics, and so I'm glad it's in the budget, or at least it was an amended version of the budget. I would look at the lists that the state has provided over the last 3 disbursements and see how many other small businesses were in need, which I would guarantee means they're still in need, that might be outside of the Bonifant. Love my Bonifant Street, but I know that there is need elsewhere as well, and look forward to an update at the Economic Development Committee once you start dispersing those funds. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Stewart.
Great, thank you. A lot of my questions were just answered by ones raised by Councilmember Glass, so thank you for that. One just point of clarification, because I know with anybody watching this or hearing about this, I'll get this question. If a business received a prior grant, they are still able to receive money from this $900,000, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted an affirmative, because we know that question is coming. So thank you for that. And I really can't thank the county executive enough for this. I mean, the folks on Bonifant are really, barely hanging on, and this will be very much needed. As I've said before, if the residents and the businesses who are living through this construction don't make it through and benefit once we're done with the Purple Line, then we really have failed moving forward, and I appreciate this. I do want to echo, not to take anything away from here, or Bonifant, what Councilmember Glass said about Long Branch and particularly the Crossroads area, University of New Hampshire. I know the city of Tacoma Park has been trying to support the businesses there, but as a municipality, they can only do as much. And I know we've had businesses close in just this past year in that area because of the Purple Line construction. And so as much as we can, working with our municipality there and other folks, help those businesses as well, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lukey.
Thank you. And echoing a lot of what my 2 predecessors have just covered, and appreciate Councilmember Glass for sort of asking for that gap analysis of, if you will, and given that this is not, we all wish it was a shorter term situation, but that we need to be forward thinking over an extended period of time and be really realistic about that, rather than trying to keep putting a Band-Aid on an ongoing issue, because Vice President Stewart's correct. If they're not with us at the end of all of this, we haven't done our job. I appreciate you already talking about the ability to facilitate this quickly because you have the boots on the ground, because you know these businesses so well. It would be helpful, I think, not relevant to us voting on the budget item right now, which I wholeheartedly support, but it would be good to know directly what the formula will be and think about sort of both of the things that were raised in the prior comments. One, businesses that are in need or have been hanging on but are on the brink of need, yes. Others where they may have been eligible and have received from state funding, they're still not stable. And how do we prioritize the whole landscape? I think whatever formula you're coming up with or proposing would be useful for us to be able to take a look at, because that will affect our funding in the future years and our understanding of what the fiscal landscape will be for this moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other colleagues wishing to speak on this. We'll echo appreciation to our state partners, District 20 delegation, Delegate Wilkins in particular. And with that, all those in favor of this item that wasn't reviewed by the committee, that is unanimous. I'm going to turn it back to the committee chair to go over the items that were reviewed by the committee.
Perfect. So this is item 26 for those following at home or in their office. The Economic Development Fund. So we're going to continue with this one. So basically, I want to mention that the committee added let me look back. We reviewed this before the joint committee session with GO on the jobs appropriation. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. Because of that discussion that dealt with funding, we decided to add a recommendation to add more funding to several programs, like the microloan program, the Economic Development Fund grant and loan program, the Fund for High Growth Businesses, and so on. So it is my understanding that we're going to have, since we already went through that joint committee session and we voted on jobs yesterday, we need a motion to remove all those additions, and Councilmember Glass can take it from here and make those motions now.
Yield to Councilmember Glass.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so during the Economic Development Committee, because there were a number of economic development proposals before the council, not only the FY25 budget, but the jobs initiative, there were, in my opinion, there were a number of programs that worked towards the same goal. And I wanted to provide the council, and in particular the joint committee, the option of choosing which path, working through the FY25 budget or working through the special appropriation. And that was decided yesterday. So the need for the additional $3.25 million for the EDF GLP fund is no longer needed, nor is the $3 million for the micro loan program. So I'd like to move that both of those two items be removed from this recommendation.
Second.
That is moved by Councilmember Glass, seconded by Councilmember Fani Gonzalez. All those in favor of removing these items from the recommendation, please indicate by raising your hand. That is unanimous.
I yield back.
Let me yield back to Committee Chair. Thank you.
So what we have left right now is the third one on page 3. The committee voted to approve the executive's recommended one-time $7.5 million fund for high-growth businesses, which I will argue it overlaps with the jobs appropriation. So I'm going to yield to Mr. Hartman to make any comments on this.
No, we were very pleased to partner with the council on the jobs program. The 7.5 we envision is the same, has the same intent as the $7 million in the jobs. So we are completely okay with removing that from the list.
I'm going to move to remove that because it's the same thing we did yesterday.
It's been moved and seconded by Councilmember Balcom. Moved by the chair, seconded by Councilmember Balcom. All those in favor of removing the $7.5 million from the recommendation, that is unanimous. And I'll yield back.
Mr. Ali, did I miss anything from this packet?
There was just the reduction of $100,000 to SBIR and the
Yes.
cybersecurity investor program.
Yes, the committee voted, everything was unanimously. The committee voted to reduce funding by $100,000 for the cybersecurity investors incentive program based on expected participation in the program, and because EDF funding can be flexible, can have flexibility across the different components. So that's one. And then the committee voted to reduce funding by $100,000 for the Small Business Innovation Research Matching Grant Program based on the expected participation in the program. Basically the same. So we need to vote on that.
Okay, we have committee recommendations on those items. All those in favor of those committee recommendations, please indicate by raising your hand. That is unanimous. It's a good thing they were unanimous because there are 4 people in that committee, so unanimous votes are super helpful. With that, we have the committee recommendations have all been voted on individually, including the additional ones, so I don't think we have to take an additional vote. Madam Clerk, on the roll call. I think we've taken a vote on each individual item. We can take a vote as amended, including the item that wasn't taken up by the committee, just to be safe for the clerk. All those in favor of this amended EDF recommendation, that is unanimous. So we are going to move on from item 26. That's a belts and suspenders vote there. I haven't gotten one yet here. So we're going to, before we move to item 27 on incubator programs, NDA, let me turn it to Councilmember Joanna.
Thank you. I just would like to be recorded in the affirmative for the consent calendar. I think I just missed that earlier this morning, so just wanted to ask for consent for that. Thank you.
Okay, clerk will note that in the minutes, and I'll turn it back to the chair of the Economic Development Committee for the incubator programs NDA.
This is a very exciting item. Honestly, at least for me, it's probably the most exciting one. Just because it's sad to say that we're playing catch-up compared to other places around the state, not even the nation, around the state, on incubators. And so the committee voted unanimously to approve the executive's recommended FY25 budget of almost $4.5 million, representing an increase of 64% on the above of the previous FY24 budget. The change in funding reflects the addition of $1.8 million to support new programming for the term innovation manager position, and the change also reflects a shift out of 2 positions and increases to operating expenses and costs for existing personnel. I'm going to yield to the county executives team so they can provide more information. But before I do that, I just want to share with everyone that the Economic Development Committee is going to have a field trip on incubators in July. As always, everybody's welcome to our field trips. July 17, and we're working with Ms. Judith Costello on that trip. Basically, we're going to be looking at, how other places are working on incubators, so we can get, their ideas and see which ones we can implement here, which ones we cannot. So mark your calendars, and I'm very excited about that. But just keep in mind that if we move forward with this idea, and if you want to get on the field trip, that means you need to vote in favor of this item. Otherwise, don't even bother. Mr. Herman.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chair Fanny Gonzalez. I really appreciate the chance to talk about what we call the entrepreneurial or innovation ecosystem. It's a tough concept, but it's marrying together research with business development, taking our best strengths and putting them together. So we talked in committee about the incubators. The county has 3, and we have a partnership with the Henry Jackson Foundation for a 4th space. These are, as you know, the Germantown space is focused mainly on life sciences. Rockville is on high tech, and Silver Spring is more equity focused, smaller organizations that are looking to grow. The challenge, and council members who are returning from the previous council know how far we've come with our incubation system. You also know that we are still behind, and so the county executive's budget proposes to use one-time funds in this year to leap forward to being in where our peers are with privately operated and supported innovation centers, not only working with companies, not only expanding the opportunities for companies to come into our centers, but also partnering with our private sector innovation centers. So we have a set of curriculum that is world-class that you'll find in Philadelphia, you'll find in Seattle, wherever you go, you see these sorts of efforts. So the one-time expenditures, the $1.8 million that we've talked about is to bring in the world-class operator to do an assessment and look at develop the curriculum that we need. There are out-of-the-box solutions that we are aware of. But this would all need to be a competitive process, so I can't really talk about specific vendors at this point. But I know who might be bidding on this, and our goal is to get that RFP drafted if we get the nod from the council, and out the door on July 1. And this is to provide the full-scale technology acceleration services for up to 100 companies, to provide robust educational programming and networking to support the companies that are in the system, public and private, and to make the changes to bring in that operator who can then be our go-to person. It could be one company that bids on everything. It could be 3 companies. We don't know yet until the RFPs go out the door. The second piece of this is the one-time investment we've asked for on the CIP side, the $3 million. We have $4 million, but $3 million from the county, $1 million from the state, to upgrade our incubators. Germantown is it comes in because we found that, and I wish Judy were here. She could talk so much more about this, but I've learned a lot from her in the last month. But entrepreneurs are looking for just bench space. And so in addition to the labs, we'd be adding additional space for more companies to come in, more entrepreneurs to come in and use that incubator space. Rockville, we're doing additional enhancements. Gene, do you? Okay.
Happy to jump in. Thank you,
Sure,
Mr.
go
Hartman.
ahead. Thank you.
Gene Smith, Montgomery County Business Center Manager again. So I want to go back quickly to the Germantown Innovation Center. So we've already had 4 businesses show up recently that look at our labs. They're like, these are way too big, way too expensive. I just want this bench space here to put my PCR machine and do my test. How much is that? So we've been thinking a little bit outside of the box, but some of this capital improvement is to make it more efficient and easier, and to align it with the current industry needs for our entrepreneurs. In Rockville, the funding is set aside because if anyone has been to the Rockville Innovation Center, if not, we can do tours of our innovation centers. Like, happy to do that anytime. There's co-working space that used to be part of the Relevant Health Accelerator when BH Haya had it. It is not efficient for co-working space anymore in the current market, and so we need to make a few investments. For example, the outlets are all along the wall, so we can only put businesses along the wall, and then we have a big dead center in the middle of the room that's not useful and not available for our businesses. And so, and then the last chunk of the capital funding is just an overhaul of branding and marketing for all of the facilities, as well as technology to make them more integrated with each other and with hopefully a third-party operator who will make it more seamless for all of our entrepreneurs across the network. So I don't.
Sure, and the last piece was our partnership with the Henry Jackson Foundation Innovation Labs. The idea is for Henry Jackson Foundation for Advancement of Military Medicine to increase the inventory of smaller-sized lab space suitable for growing businesses in the county, and for that the budget contained $300,000 in one-time investment to partner with them to create that space.
Great. The only thing that I didn't mention that I think I need to say it is that when this recommendation from the county executive came to the committee, it was placed as a shift from MCEDC to the NDA, and the committee disagreed. This is not a shift. This is a brand new initiative, and that's why we looked at this the incubators before we dealt with the MCEDC. So I wanted to say that, and basically the addition of 1.95 million was placed on the new and enhanced programs list. So I want that to be absolutely cleared. With that, Mr. Ali, was there anything else?
Sorry, just to be clear, this does actually tie back to the item on the Office of County Executive where there was some shifting between the Business Center team and Small Business Support Services. So the fiscal analyst policy position that was in the incubators is now the climate position within the CEX office.
Okay, so that was handled previously in the CX budget, but thank you for noting that. Appreciate that. Let me turn it to Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm very supportive of this as well, and I thank the committee for all of its work. You know, over the years, we've had great success. I don't have to remind everyone of the incubators and accelerators that we have brought to Montgomery County, and it's truly an investment, and it's an investment that never stays the same, as you pointed out. When everybody needed wet labs, everybody built wet labs, and we didn't need wet labs. And then everybody decided we needed co-working space. Well, then that did. I mean, we've needed it at times, but we also have to be pivotal in what the companies themselves need. And, you know, talk about AstraZeneca. AstraZeneca did not start out the huge business in Montgomery County that it is today with its, I don't know, 4,000 employees. It started out in somebody's garage. I mean, and that's not that we were a part of the incubator part with them, but that's how it started. And they've stayed and they've helped many, many people get great jobs right here in Montgomery County. This is an investment. It's a good investment. And I think we need to, if anything, not only approve this, but do more and more of it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Appreciate that. Appreciate all the work of the committee. Appreciate the efforts by the executive branch and the real focus on this. I'll note that we had a great incubator program. That program got a little stale and a little outdated and hadn't gotten the tender love and care that it needed. We talked about this in the last council coming in, and Mr. Smith actually. Both Mr. Hartman-Espada and Mr. Smith were in different roles, but Mr. Smith was specifically in a different role as the staff analyst reviewing some of those challenges. There have been some stops and starts of how we move forward, including some challenges of bringing a consultant on board to give recommendations. This ultimately, the goal here is to outsource this to entities that can be more nimble, do understand what the needs are and what best practices are in other places. Things that, frankly, county government had not been nimble enough and responsive enough to be able to address in real time. And when you're talking about innovation and the need, for innovators and entrepreneurs, we need to be moving very quickly. So appreciate that we're moving in that direction. I think that it has to happen in conjunction and collaboration with Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation to make sure that we're working together in lockstep. Feels like that is how this is working now. And so I just want to express my relief and appreciation that it took longer to get here than I think any of us would have wanted, but I think we're moving in a positive direction and actually moving forward with the recommendations that were provided to us by subject matter experts who actually know a lot more about these issues than any of us in county government do. So appreciate that, and I'm in strong support of this as well. So with that, we have a committee recommendation on the incubator NDA. All those in favor indicate by raising your hand. That is unanimous. We'll turn back to the Economic Development Committee Chair for the Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation NDA.
Yes, that's item number 28. If NCDC would like to come forward, please do. So this one is a tricky one. So, but the committee 100% agreed. We basically, to put a long story short, we disagree with the county executive recommendation with his cut to MCEDC. So basically, the county executive recommended a $4 million for MCEDC, a 32.7% reduction compared to FY24 approved levels. So the committee did not support that recommendation, and instead we voted to restore the proposed cut of $1.9 million in 3 equal tranches of about $650,000 each, and that will be placed in the new and enhanced programs list. The committee also approved the recommendation of the 3% inflationary adjustment to be applied to any funding amount approved by the county executive's recommendation and the committee recommendation. Basically, we, at the last minute, presenting a cut to MCDC, we didn't think that was fair. We're talking about people's jobs too. So that was a unanimous support. I will add that the Economic Development Committee has different work sessions with NCDC. We work very actively. And I really want to emphasize the need that we really need to have concrete measurements and goals that we can, read and check. That track record is very important. So I know the county executive's team is reworking contracts with MCDC. That needs to be placed there. The MCDC, as we have established in the committee, your main job is to attract, retain, and market Montgomery County. That's your main goal. Everything else, we have the Small Business Center that has been doing a great job, and they continue to do an amazing job, and they work closely with all of you. We also have the WorkSource Montgomery doing an amazing job, but your job as MCEDC is to attract, retain, and market Montgomery County, and we need to have really detailed measurement points that we can follow. And if Mr. Ken Estrada, or Harman Estrada, I like Estrada, man. Can you please comment on that? That would be great.
Thank you so much, Chair Fanny Gonzalez. For the record, Ken Hartman Espada, but I appreciate your and agree with your direction on this. And one thing we heard loud and clear from the committee is over the next few months in the summer, we'll be working with the committee as well as MCDC and council staff on what the first task is, what the FY25 agreement needs to look like, so that we can get a better look at where the return on investment for the funds, the county taxpayer funds, are going into this. We are the only funder of MCDC. We appoint their board of directors, and we really appreciate the partnership with members of the board and the staff. And I believe they've heard us, that we like to like, as we do with all these other programs that we've talked about today, get to see the metrics, the contacts, the quality of the contacts, the attraction efforts, the conferences that we go to, and the quality of our interactions, as well as the data behind that they generate in their interactions with businesses. We're willing to share our data. We've set up weekly meetings now with the CAO and the executive director of MCEDC. I know Councilmember Balcom also sits on the board of directors, and we're looking forward to engaging in that discussion so we can get to a better place. So we're all working together, and you, the council, and the county executive can see the results and know that it's funding well spent.
Great. And again, and to reemphasize, as we voted yesterday with the jobs appropriation, it's in partnership with NCEDC. It's very important that this team is staffed appropriately. So I'm going to take my time here and encourage everybody to please support the new and enhanced program list as recommended by the Econ Committee. With that, Mr. Ali, did I forget anything else? Okay. With that, adieu.
Appreciate that. Let me turn it to Councilmember Balcom.
Thank you. I appreciate the chair, Fanny Gonzalez, for laying that out beautifully, and to talk about the partnership between the county executive's office, MCDC, and the committee, and working through how we communicate more clearly and make sure that everyone knows the very specific piece that they play in this very big economic development puzzle. So I appreciate that. I did want to just give a major shout out to the board of directors for MCEDC. I've been on the board now for a year and 4 or 5 months, and they are very committed and very passionate about the work that we do in economic development, not only MCEDC, but the entire county. So I did want to give that shout out. Mr. Beverly's here today. But then I also wanted to just mention that the executive director, Bill Tompkins, is not here today because he's out trying to bring jobs to Montgomery County, and so we appreciate the work that he's done. And in the previous session with the incubators, Judy Costello is doing the same thing. So while we're here trying to make sure that we have resources to continue, the county executive and those two are out actually trying to bring jobs to Montgomery County. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us today. And I trust that Mr. Tompkins and the county executive and Ms. Costello are doing good work over, I think, in South Korea right now. And so I know he'll watch this on YouTube when he returns. And I would encourage all of my colleagues to watch the Economic Development Committee work session on this. Councilmember Chair Fani Gonzalez and Councilmember Balcom were both brief in their comments, but they had very, very good things to say during that work session. And it was a free-flowing conversation, one that was so open and frank that we committed ourselves to continuing the conversation post-budget. Because whether you are the county executive and his team, you are us on the council, you are members of the business community, or those who maybe aspire to be or haven't even thought of being a part of the business community here in Montgomery County, we all want and need MCEDC to succeed. And appreciate Chair Beverly for being here this afternoon. It has been a hard conversation over the last year and a quarter or year and a half since we created the Economic Development Committee and have had some deep dives. So we've been trying to get some more data. Mr. Hartman mentioned the need for more data. But what I want to talk about this afternoon is the 1/3 cut that has been presented to MCEDC. Currently a $6 million budget. It was requested by MCEDC to increase that by $1 million, and nearly $2 million have been reduced. On Tuesday, we approved the Jobs Initiative, which requires MCEDC to dole out cumulatively $20 million. Mr. Beverly, to you and your team, does MCEDC have the ability to do that work, which we have unanimously agreed needs to be done? And turn on your mic, sir.
Again, thank you for the opportunity to be here and listen to the dialogue around this topic. I think I've expressed over time my thoughts around it. But MCEDC, again, I think what happens in the course of all of this is the roles of all of the parties involved in this, the divisions of labor, and who's responsible and accountable for what. This new activity is something that I believe falls pretty well nicely into what MCEDC is supposed to do. And I think we're probably going to have to add some resources, but at the same time, I do believe they're capable of performing the activities that are laid out in this plan. So.
Okay, so
Could I just suggest maybe asking Mr. Hartman,
I'm going to defer to
some of the conversations, if there's two different, not unrelated, but two different dynamics here. One is the general work and the delineation of responsibilities, and a significant conversation that has been happening over the last couple of months between the executive branch and MCEDC of having a clear delineation of who's responsible for what and how that works and what the staffing requirements would be in order to execute and execute well on both sides. And there's another part of that on the Jobs Initiative and those particular programs and the delineation of responsibilities within those three funds. And those conversations have happened as well. And as part of the appropriations for that, the coverage for staff and administrative costs as part of that was part of those discussions. So it might be helpful to have Mr. Hartman Espada explain those conversations.
And thank you so much, President Glass, and thank you, Councilmember President Freese and Councilmember Glass. Really appreciate the question. It is something we spoke about in committee extensively when we together jointly with MCEDC, Judy, myself, and Mr. Tompkins, how we would administer the three grant funds, and the roles of the county staff and MCEDC are very well delineated. We have a good understanding, and also an understanding that that we will not detract from MCED's core mission with administering the jobs program. That the compensation for the administration of segments of the grant programs is going to be covered out of the EDF. We will have understandings and an MOU on staffing for the jobs program so that we can make sure that there are sufficient resources for MCDC personnel doing the very, very valuable job of vetting the applicants that are coming in, running the panel discussions. But rest assured, our intention is not to add that in a smaller pool, but to be able to provide the additional resources they need to support us and work with us on jobs.
So appreciate the focus and bringing in the executive on that. I'm a little unsure of who is implementing the program. I'm just going to refer to the packet on the jobs initiative, which says Montgomery County government will create and manage online application portals sharing data with MCEDC. MCEDC will proactively market all 3 programs. Representatives from both the county and MCEDC will serve on review committees for the various funds. Mr. Hartman, did you say that the personnel costs associated with that comes out of the EDF? Again, taking a step back, if we want this to succeed, we got to know who is staffing it. And again, this is why I've been talking about process, because if it is MCEDC that is supposed to staff the disbursement of $20 million, we are now have their budget before us, which has been cut by 1/3. Mr. Hartman.
So again, in our discussion in the joint committee, the county will open the portals. We already have the portals for the portal for the MOVE program has already been set up, where we can Mr. Smith and his team will be setting up the portals for collecting the applications for the grant funds. That data is shared with MCEDC, who for the innovation and for the founders grants, they'll be doing the qualitative review. They'll be reaching out to members of the industry and others about assessing the applications that come in and providing recommendations back to the county. At the end of the day, all agreements for all county grants under the EDF are made by finance and monitored by the Department of Finance in the county. So the other role of MCDC will be to market alongside our folks. The collaboration will be targeting those businesses, targeting those entrepreneurs, going, paying special attention to minority-owned businesses to make them aware of the grant programs and invite them to come in and apply. So there is I think we can provide more information and follow up with you to get on the actual MOU that we'll be signing with MCDC. But we have talked through these, and the actual cost of administrating this program on the MCDC side, there's an understanding as that we'll be funding that through our existing grant programs through the EDF.
So let me ask a different way the same question. In this budget, in the budget that the county executive has proposed, in which MCEDC's budget has been reduced by 1/3, will they be able to carry out the expectations that we all have placed upon them by passing and supporting the jobs initiative, Mr. Hardman, with the budget that the executive has proposed?
So the executive proposed a budget before we began working on the jobs program, and the executive as team and MCDC has been working diligently to create a scenario for how this will be administered, and a mechanism by which MCDC will be fully compensated for their role in marketing and administering these grants. So. And as you heard me earlier, Councilmember Glass, we can read the room as well as anyone else, and we're looking forward to working with MCDC on the approved budget, whatever it is, to make sure that they can fully assist us in administering the jobs program successfully.
Let me ask a fourth time a different but similar question. The $4 million that the county executive has appropriated to MCEDC, if we only approve that, and we do not approve any of the tranches, can they do what is being asked of them. Not only their core function, but also the additional function of dispersing, advertising the $20 million job initiative.
In the agreement we have with them on how to administer this program, yes.
Okay. Mr. Beverly?
Well, you didn't pose the question to me, but the answer is no.
I didn't pose it as directly, but that was the very first question I asked.
Okay. So if we're at a $4 million budget, actually that's $3 million less than we had asked for. I mean, you don't have to be a brain surgeon to figure out that you can't add extra activities and expect a result that's going to be commensurate with what you're looking for. So the answer to that question would be no, which is why I said we would need additional resources. As far as I'm concerned right now, we're sitting at a $4 million budget. Until you guys raise your hands and say you're going to do this and you're going to do it in these tranches that you're going to do, whether all that happens or not, because something else could happen, I don't know. So bottom line is we're trying to work with what we have on the table as in the exec's budget. And the answer to that question is no.
I agree with that response.
Okay.
I don't know how it's possible, which is why I wanted the process to go through this way. You can debate about whether or not the additional $1 million request is needed, but I would think that at least you need to be made whole to some degree. Putting it in tranches and leaving it up to the body to deliberate amongst all the other things that are being put on the rec list is a gamble that I don't think has good odds. And given the $6 million, or 5.9, whatever that might be, not 5.95, is currently what you have. I would like to make the motion that we restore that gap, so that the base budget that returns to the base budget as a continuation of services, which is the practice that we've now gotten into in this council. So I'd like to make that motion.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to restore the funding as part of this budget. It's been moved by Councilmember Glass. It's been seconded by Councilmember Fani Gonzalez. We have a number of colleagues in the queue, but now we have a motion on the floor. So if you're not in the queue to discuss this motion, if you could take yourself out of the queue, and I'll call on colleagues. Councilmember Jawando.
So we take yourself out of the queue and then put back in.
After we clear the motion, you'll request again. Your motion. Okay. Do you want to speak to this motion, or do you want to speak to the broader? Okay. Pull yourself out of the queue, and we'll allow you to get back in the queue. Councilmember Sales.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. We voted unanimously during the session to restore the funding, and I think because the funds to allocate the jobs, resources, grants to qualified businesses will be subtracted from the jobs fund, that will make them whole. And so I think we should vote on, if we're going to now put this 5.95 back instead of the 3 tranches, I'd be supportive of that. We asked for quarterly reports because we wanted to track and monitor and evaluate the progress, how much was being spent to oversee the funds, allocate the resources, how much was being spent on marketing, how many businesses were being taken care of. So I just think we should vote on if we're going to move forward or not with the tranches, or leave the money as is. So I'd be supportive of restoring the money without the tranches. And
That's what the motion is, yeah.
Yep.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so a couple things. One, the Economic Development Corporation is not dispersing funds. They don't disperse funds for other grant programs. They're not dispersing funds for this program. That will be handled by the Department of Finance. That was discussed exhaustively in the joint committee. There has been a very significant amount of discussion that has taken place between the leadership of MCEDC and the executive branch, where Mr. Hartman Espada has been really at the center of most of those conversations. Bill Tompkins is not here today because he is traveling with the county executive. Part of the discussion and agreement has been on reimbursing the staffing and administrative costs for the implementation of the programs, as we customarily do for any implementation of any grant program. If MCEDC wasn't involved at all, someone would be helping MCEDC. The Department of Finance or some other entity would be brought in, like we did before MCEDC was brought in for a couple of the business grant programs in the beginning. An outside consultant was brought in to help to address the increased staffing needs, and out of the appropriation that came to the Department of Finance within the EDF, funding was used to offset those administrative costs. That is customary. That is what happens in every grant program that we have and that we do. And then ultimately, that would be the same process and the same program that would happen here. There are two questions before us. One question was already litigated and decided, although it seems like we're relitigating it here today, on the staffing capacity and the reimbursement of the administrative and staffing costs for the worked out, agreed upon breakdown of responsibility between the executive branch and the EDC. Those funds, as noted, would come out of administrative costs, out of the grant funding, which is true of every other grant program that we have, where a portion of administrative costs, when appropriate, when necessary, are utilized out of that appropriation. So this is starting to conflate different issues, and I just think it's important to note that. There is a separate question of whether or not there's an expectation for the organization to be able to keep up with the expectations that we have set for the organization to do the type of economic development that we would want. And I would strongly agree that at the current level of funding, it can't fulfill what we would expect of it and what we want of it. And that's why I strongly and enthusiastically agreed with the committee recommendation. But those are today's conversation has changed that conversation to a certain degree to conflate the two issues to change them. So I just think that it's important to note that. As was suggested earlier, MCEDC is not dispersing funds. The Department of Finance is dispersing funds. There has been hours and hours and hours of work between MCEDC and the executive branch, a level of coordination and collaboration that, frankly, I haven't seen in 5.5 years that I've been here, to determine what the breakdown of responsibility was going to be, and that has been worked out. But with that, let me turn it to colleagues. The motion is still before us. Councilmember Katz. All right. Councilmember Joando, would you like to speak to this motion? Okay. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you, President Friedson. So I'd just like to clarify that there was no expectation and is no expectation that MCEDC disperse the funds, hands out the funds. I might have used the word disperse. It's dispersing information. I know that finance gives out the money. The question is, can MCEDC do what is required of it now that we have passed the jobs initiative? And so the conflation is not about roles and responsibilities. The conflation is that last week we approved at committee level MCEDC's budget, and in between last week and this week we gave them additional responsibility. That's the conflation, and there's no confusion about it. And so the question before all of us on this council is, can MCEDC do what is expected of it? And yes, I think we're all unanimous in saying we need more. We need more information. We need to better understand what their mission is. And we will have more conversation about that. But in addition to that, they have to market and coordinate and review how these $20 million will be allocated, not dispersed, allocated. I don't think they can do all of that, but we still need them to do more. It's unfortunate that we're having this debate at this time, because we shouldn't be. We should be talking about their budget, requesting more of them, deciding how much more we should give them if the majority is there, and then we should have had a conversation about adding roles and responsibilities in accordance to a $20 million job initiative. That's the lay of the land, and that is what we all need to decide. I don't think they can do what we're asking with the 1/3 cut that's been made. I don't think we should chance it by putting 3 tranches on the reconciliation list, and that's why I've made the motion I did.
Okay, Councilmember Kester's still in the queue, but all right. Councilmember Feigen-Gonzalez.
Oh, man. Look, I'm going to say 2 things. One, this is why I thought the jobs appropriation should be part of FY25, and we wouldn't have this problem. But that's water under the bridge. We're now here. It is. So we knew this was coming, so I'm going to reemphasize once again that the MCEDC, they do need those 3 trenches to be approved. I'm going to say no to the motion, and then encourage once again to the council to support the 3 trenches for MCEDC and move on. It's sad that we're here. We set a really bad precedent putting something in FY24 just a couple days before this discussion. It was bad, and I hope it doesn't happen again. At the end of the day, we all want to have a strong economic development in Montgomery County, but process matters, and this is why. We're seeing it right now. But again, I'm going to say no to the motion so we can move on, and encourage everyone to support the 3 equal tranches of $650,000 each. That's it.
Okay, so the second's being withdrawn. I don't believe there's a second. Okay, there is a second now. So you don't. Okay, do you want to speak to the motion that you're seconding?
There might be a reason businesses get confused why they want to come here. If we want someone to do their job, we have to have them have the resources to do their job. The way that I'm understanding the motion is that that this would return all the tranches to MCEDC and from what they had last year, and so that they can do their job. From the very beginning, I have been very concerned about MCEDC. Going to be very upfront about it. I don't believe it's ever reached its potential. We were here from when it started. We've seen various directors, and I do believe that it needs to go back. Continue to go back to the economic development and to the full council to see the metrics and the deliverables, what we're going to end up doing. But we need to do it better. We've said it just this week for the Jobs Act, and we're saying it again. We have not done a good job for the economic, getting jobs here in Montgomery County. And we can't pretend that we have. We can't. The numbers show that we haven't. And the job that you all and all of us are tasked to do is a tough job. The reality is we're going up against some of the best competition in America and maybe the world that when we want somebody to come here. But we want somebody to come here. We did it for the Jobs Act. We have the discussions for the Jobs Act and said, look, this is one of the first times in a while, and not the first time ever, but it's been the first time in a while that the county executive side and the county council side, and now it's going to be MCEDC side, that all of us are on the same page, that we're all a team of horses working together so that we can actually show that this is the place to be. We are the place that we should be, but we don't show it, we don't prove it. And this is an opportunity to prove it. So I am supportive of replacing the monies that were taken or suggested to be taken in the county executive's budget, which I think he is also supportive of at this point, to bring it back so that you all, MCEDC, can do your job. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilman Robert Nuss.
Thanks. Just following the bouncing ball. So a couple of thoughts. One, I'm just going to address the elephant in the room. There was tension between the executive branch and MCEDC that led to one of his recommendations to take some of that funding away, because there was a feeling that the executive branch could perform some of those duties and leverage the resources of the office in a way that could potentially be more effective. That's why the proposal was made to some degree. And the good news is that the proposal that was set forth by the council president, that was voted unanimously by the council, has brought those parties back to the table in a very constructive way to collaborate over a joint initiative that will require both bodies to be able to work together very collaboratively for it to be effective. And however that happened, it seems pretty clear to me that it has already produced some fruit. And so that's good news, beyond just the actual substance of the program and the project itself. I appreciate and respect Councilmember Glass's proposal. I was going to support the 3 tranches. However we get there, is less important to me, because the reason I supported the $20 million is because we have to continue to invest in every way that we can in growing our economy, to create jobs, to create the revenue, to create the well-rounded community that we all want. So I will say, though, that it feels a little uncomfortable as we make decisions from the dais, because we didn't do this for some line items within Health and Human Services that we probably could have. And so that makes me just procedurally a little uncomfortable with the support of the motion. But I agree with the concept, and I agree with the argument for it. That makes a lot of sense. So I'm not really sure which direction I'm going to lean in here, but I just kind of wanted to share those thoughts out loud as I'm processing whether or not to support this specific motion.
Appreciate that. I also appreciate the rationale behind it. I strongly support providing funding and at least getting up to the level of funding that I think MCEDC needs to do the significant work that we've asked them to do, which has increased significantly. The Jobs Initiative was one example of it. The ACE loan program that was put into place that I advocated strongly for, secured state support for, is another example of that. I question the executive's indications that there were certain things that MCEDC wasn't doing that the executive could do better, and I'm glad that we're in a better place today than we were when that was put forward. I do think that this is being handled very differently than other aspects. I support the committee's recommendation. I'm not going to support the motion. I will strongly support to get these tranches back on as part of the committee's recommendation, and we'll yield to colleagues to continue this conversation. Councilmember Balcom.
Thank you. So, of course, I support all 3 tranches. I think that the county executive's reduction of the budget was was wrong. And so, of course, I appreciate coming back fully supportive we're asking MCDC now to do the jobs program as well, which I know that they'll do a very good job. The issue for me is this is hump day, as was said earlier today. It's in the middle of hump day, which means that for 2.5 days, we didn't put this decision through this lens. And I think that it would be unfair, and I would feel biased in making this decision, because this is something that I emphatically want, is that the word? Enthusiastically want this, and I'm deeply invested in it, but I don't feel that I can make this choice, because it's, from a process perspective, that means that the decisions that we've made for the past 2.5 days, perhaps me or other people on the dais would have made the same call but didn't. And so that's where I'm at with it, is I strongly encourage every one of my colleagues to vote for all 3 of these tranches. It's imperative, and we've talked many times, with the exception of well, I shouldn't say that, but so many of the decisions we make rely on having a strong, robust economy. And so I encourage every council member to vote in favor of the 3 tranches, and that's what I intend to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you. I'll make this my last comment so we can move on, but I appreciate everything that Councilmember Albornoz just said, because he's absolutely right. A precedent has been set, and it's not being set now. When we first started the budget deliberations on Monday, we were going under normal order as I understood it, and then on Tuesday, a motion was made to restore something that was on a list to the base budget. And we went through the T&E committee the first day, the transportation, and there were things that should have been part of the base budget, and had I known what the rules were then, I would have put them on the list. But I didn't know that. And so, Mr. Howard, I just have do you have a list of things that this council has agreed to put into the base budget over the last 2.5 days?
I am tracking as we go. So I do have, I don't have an exact number, but there have been some items that were originally on the new enhanced list and that were recommended to be put into the base budget.
And that's sufficient for the point of the conversation. And what I'm arguing is that this is not new and enhanced. It's same service budget. We're not giving them any extra. We're making them whole because of the responsibility that we've placed upon them 2 days ago. I yield back.
Okay. Do we still have a motion on the floor? We have a motion and a second. Okay. We have a motion and a second on the floor.
You might have some information that might help.
Okay. Sorry, just some general comments. Stacy Hardy, MCDC. This is my 8th budget. I have seen the organization grow since 2017. I think a point that has been missing here is that MCDC is an excellent investment. Since 2017, through the organization's efforts, we've created over 8,000 jobs and we've retained over 13,000. So that is significant. There's an immediate impact to the economy. Our staff has done everything that has been asked of us. If you remember, during the pandemic, we distributed $22 million without extra resources. We went over and beyond. So I appreciate the discussion today, but I just want you to understand and remember that this is an important investment. You've committed $40 million to this effort, and it has absolutely returned. And I just want our staff to hear, again, that we thank them. We thank the staff that we currently have and those that have contributed to this effort over time. But this is an important decision for us, so thank you for your consideration.
We appreciate that. Just to be clear, I think what you're hearing is, in response to the county executive's proposed cut, overwhelming support from the county council, unanimous support from the committee to restore the funding for MCDC. I think what needs to be clarified here is the discussions that happened to restore things to the base budget up to this point have been based on conversation subsequent to committee recommendations based on staff and executive branch feedback, where things that were not included in the base budget per the way in which we were addressing base budget versus new and enhanced programs were clarified. Legal requirements that weren't clear that they were legal requirements, other dynamics that came to light either after committee conversation or as part of the discussion from the dais. This would be the first time that without that, a motion to restore without that level of feedback or level of consensus occurred. So it has, the conversation here is unanimity in the support that you have heard. The question is really about how we approach the issue. I'm going to call for a vote on the motion. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. That is 3. All those opposed, that is 8. The motion fails. And I will turn back to the committee chair to continue.
On this, on MCDC, we are done. We have to vote for the trenches. But we're going to vote for the trenches now?
Yeah, so, okay, so you have nothing else. Let me turn it to any colleagues that want to make general comments. Councilmember Joanda.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate your point about the budgets. You know, the former Fed committee, I've been there for most of the budgets, and then even before that, I shared office space as a contractor for WorkSource Montgomery with MCDC in its first year when I was running Summer Rise. It's come a long way. You know, we had a rocky start, just like with any new organization. This disagreement that was alluded to by Councilmember Albornoz has been a part of it since the beginning, moving the functions of economic development outside of government partially into a nonprofit or a private entity. But that ship has sailed, and the work has continued and gotten better. I really appreciate the efforts to reduce the carryover money. You were smart this year. You spent that down because you know that if you watch this budget process, that's a target, right? And so we appreciate that. That had been a problem for several years, and I know you based your higher number because you actually spent more than you were allocated last year. I will reiterate the request for, improved, and I know there has been some improvement, but tighter and more comprehensive metrics, right? You know, when you say 8,000 jobs, obviously you're never going to be able to say exactly the jobs you retain because you're not the only person doing the work, and it's, there's a lot of factors. But I think we can continue to refine those measures and work in concert with the county executive and with us to make sure everyone's clear on what we're measuring, right? Because, if everyone's clear, then we're agreed. And I think there's still some ambiguity on the level of depth and specificity in the measurements to say that we're all on the same page. And I think we still have work to do there. I'll come to you in 1 second. Go ahead. You can respond to that.
I get confused when I hear that about the metrics because we effectively give you what you ask for. So we have our contract tells us what we are to provide you and how we are to provide it to you. And if we didn't do that, we didn't know we didn't do that, which is why when the budget came as it was, in the number that it was put forward, we were surprised, very surprised, because we had no indications that what we hadn't been providing, what we had been asked for, was provided. So it's just a confusing process. As far again, however you guys go about doing, sorry, I shouldn't be so informal with that comment. But I understand. It either goes in as a base or it goes in as tranches. That's your call. You guys figure that part out. But the idea that we don't need those dollars and then to take what this body 7 years or so ago put in place to try and change the trajectory of how we actually do build our economy, how we do create job growth, that we somehow never got over that it left government. And if in fact our intent, or if there is what you want to do is to pull it back into government, I think at some point that conversation needs to be had and have a discussion about how you truly go about doing economic development.
Yeah, appreciate that. It's a good segue to my third point, which is the county executive's responsibility, and Mr. Hartman Espada is here as the ACAO, to, one, communicate with the contractual agency whether they're doing what you expect of them. And then communicate to us that, in your budget request. And if it changed, even if it just changed on Tuesday, write us a letter and tell us it changed. And that you think, you still haven't really firmly said that you think the budget should be increased, right? And so that's frustrating too, because we're trying to do your job for you. And that's not fair to us, it's not fair to the public. And for an agency that has important work to do, and has shown improvement, I think we all just need to be clear on those metrics. So I'll ask you just one more time, is it the county executive's position that the budget should be restored?
So let me address the points that have been made, and I'll do it quickly. It is not the county executive's intention to pull MCDC back into the government. That's not what we want. We see our partners across the river, the Fairfax EDC, the Arlington EDC, are very tightly integrated with what they do. To the public, it's seamless. The nonprofit side and the government side, we want that. So if there's been a miscommunication, I can tell you on moving forward, as I have assumed these roles,
right.
I intend to work very closely with Bill and the team and the board, county executive does too, to make sure we all have an understanding of our roles. We are integrated and collaborative, and we are moving forward in a way that we can tell our taxpayers, because we're the only funding entity for this organization, that we're spending our money and we're getting a return on it. So with that, again, county executive is not here. He's in Korea with the executive director of EDC.
So you're not authorized to speak.
But I can tell you. But as I said earlier, I've spoken to many council members. I know how you feel, and I can pledge that we'll be working with the Econ Committee and EDC moving forward to make sure that we are all communicative and on the same page and real, and everything's out in the open.
Okay. Well, I don't think MCDC is the only agency where we have this problem. As the chair of the Education Committee, I'm very frustrated with how the MCPS budget was handled. And you put us in a very difficult position also for something that's very important for economic development, all right? But that being said, I will support the tranches. I think that's the way to go, given what we just acted on in the other amendment. And I appreciate your commitment to saying you'll work with the entity that we fund to help do our economic development in partnership with the government to make sure that we're on the same page on what the expectations are and who's doing what. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll just remind, the executive branch negotiates the contract. That's one piece. The executive branch also has membership on the board, as do we. It used to be me, now it's Councilmember Balcom. If there are issues, those are the two main mechanisms, besides the regular coordination and collaboration that should be happening on a day-to-day, hour-by-hour basis. Those are the formal ways in which these issues can and should be addressed, which wouldn't put us in the position, unfortunately, that we're in. So I just want to echo that. I will say, like was said, and I appreciate Councilmember Albernaz really lifting this up, over the last 2 months, the level of coordination and collaboration and willingness to work together and interest in really laying out who's responsible for what and how the handoffs are going to work, that has been unprecedented. It should have happened 7 years ago. It didn't. It should have happened 5 years ago and 4 years ago and 3 years ago and 2 years ago. It didn't to the extent that it should have. It is happening now. And so I thank the MCEDC for stepping up and being willing to have those conversations. I thank you, Mr. Hartman Espada, especially because you have really been at the center of those conversations. We need executive branch leadership, the county executive, the CAO, and everybody to be part of those conversations as well. We all want the left-hand, right-hand dynamic. It only works when that happens. And I think too often the blame on this relationship not being as coordinated as we would like has been only on the MCEDC side, and it needs to be shared blame and also shared solutions. And it seems like we're heading in that direction. And so, we're in a tough spot here because we're inheriting some of the dynamics that led up to this moment, but we're in a much better place now. And so the question is, can we take this opportunity. I hope we follow through with the committee's recommendation, are able to get the funding back to restore it so that we can capitalize on the momentum that we've really seen over the last couple of months. If we don't restore the funding, I don't think we'll be able to capitalize on the significant progress that's been made and the unprecedented level of collaboration and coordination that we've seen, which we wish happened years ago, didn't, but I think it's finally getting to a place where it can and should, and I'm seeing that it is happening now. Final word to the committee chair, Councilmember Flanagan-Gonzalez.
Just want to correct the record here. A few months ago, we had an economic development session with MCDC. It was part of the retention and attraction and marketing theme that we're pushing on. And in that particular work session, MCDC did a really poor job, like sharing data, the things that we're asking for. And I made it loud and clear. This is during the Jake time, not you, Ken. I made it loud and clear that was unacceptable, and you may remember that work session. Then after that, I went to a board meeting, and I had several discussions with Mr. Tompkins, and I said, now that we have a brand new Economic Development Committee, you're gonna have to tell us exactly, show us the data and what exactly you are doing, which is in response to Councilmember Jawondo's comment, because he was true, okay? I think that from the beginning of the birth of this committee until now, I have seen the communications grow. I had made sure that now with Mr. Ken Hartman Espada on board, that we're working in collaboration. When I heard the Jobs Appropriation Act, the first thing I did was calling Ken and Bill and to make sure that they were talking, because all that work we have done in committee to ensure that we create trust, it was going down the drain. So I'm glad we're here today, and I'm glad that we're gonna keep on going. As it was mentioned at the beginning of my remarks, there is work on creating a new, reconstructing the new contract with MCDC, and those points need to be part of the contract so there's no confusion from anybody. So with that, I'm gonna call for a vote on the 3 tranches so we can move forward. And also, the committee also approved the 3% inflationary adjustment as well.
Yeah, so the 3% inflationary adjustment was covered in the previous vote. We're covering that all customarily. We have a committee recommendation. All those in favor of the committee recommendation, please indicate by raising your hand. That is unanimous. Thank you to MCDC for joining us. Thank you, Mr. Hartman Espada and the executive branch. We have our last item for this afternoon. I'll turn it back to the Chair of Economic Development for Urban Districts.
255. Following up with that conversation we had here. Okay, so I'm going to mention here. I would say before I want to mention a vote that we had yesterday in GEO, and it was under the placemaking and emerging business districts funding, and we all agreed on that one. That line that was addressed yesterday, and I didn't want to uplift it yesterday because I knew I was going to talk about it today, so I didn't want to repeat myself. At the beginning of last year, the Economic Development Committee, when we were discussing the urban district, we said, and I pushed really hard, to ensure that there are council districts that don't have an urban district. So think about Council District 5, 2, and 7. So we were thinking about the idea of creating a pilot program for urban districts in those areas, understanding that every time you create an urban district, that means more taxes. Let's just put it out there. So based on that idea, this whole addition of $140,000 to the county executive's budget that we approved yesterday to target urban district pilot programs in Germantown, Olney, and White Oak was born. So you're welcome. So that's if you all agree. So I had to put that out there. Now moving on to this Urban District FY25 operating budget. I want to start by saying that the Economic Development Committee, unanimously approved the county executive budget. including the increase of the 3% adjustment that we have mentioned for nonprofit contracts. But I will also highlight that we did have a difference with the county executive in terms of the maintenance of current services that are affecting they're being affected in these urban districts. We thought that it should be part of the base budget. There was a motion by Council Member Balcon that we all agreed. We want to make this is part of the infrastructure, making sure that our districts or urban districts have what they need to move forward. So with that, that's all I'm going to say. If Mr. Logan, was there anything else that I missed? No? Beautiful. Mr. Hartman Espada, anything else?
No, thank you so much, Chair Fanny Gonzalez. I appreciate your mention of the pilot program. And I do have to say that we're very thrilled now to be working with Germantown Town Center and in White Oak with grant programs going to community organizations to help us with these efforts. We're looking forward to continuing to work with Olney, get something started, but appreciate your mention of that. And I just want to turn it over to the regional directors who help manage the urban districts if they have any comments, if that's okay.
Good afternoon, council members. Good afternoon, Council President Friedson, as well as Mayor Stewart and Mayor Katz. Thank you for your continued support of us, not only for the community engagement cluster, but the urban districts that we're speaking about today. I just want to note that Mr. Newman's joining us via Zoom. Also, his urban district manager, Carson Henry's with us today. If you have any questions about Silver Spring, Ms. Cardona, who's the director of Mid-County, is not able to be with us today. So Ms. Ruiz, her urban district manager, is here to answer any questions about Wheaton. And then last but not least, I just want to recognize that my urban district manager, Brandon Stuckey's behind me. TJ Dant, our community projects manager, is behind me. They work very closely with our executive director, Jeff Burton, for the Bethesda Urban Partnership, who's behind me as well as Natalie Avery, who's executive director of the Friendship Heights Urban District, and those are in my district of Bethesda, as you know. Once again, I just want to thank you for this, and I appreciate all the support. If you have any questions, please let us know.
I will say something else. As part of the committee conversations, we also said that we're going to have, that Econ Committee is going to have a joint committee conversation with Transportation and Environment to talk about the parking lots and seeing how we can move that forward of restructuring the whole way we are raising money in some of the urban districts. So stay tuned for that one. Very important conversation.
Thank you. Councilmember Juan.
Just wanted to appreciate the committee and the urban districts and Jacob Newman, who tuned in from home. Give you a shout out there. Thank you for all of your work, the whole team that's here and represented, and the good Bethesda red in the back there. But we really appreciate it, and also just uplift that there are, because of how successful you've all been, Olney and other, there are a lot of people excited to take advantage of the urban district model. So I'm glad that that'll be explored and look forward to talking more about that. So happy to support the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Stewart.
Great. I'll just share my thanks to Mr. Newman. It is great to see you virtually, and just to thank Carson Henry, Mr. Fosselman, for all your work in particular, since I get to work with you all most directly. Because I think the job of our urban districts is really so multifaceted. As we're going through our budgets, this week, and we're touching on so many different things: economic development, transportation, our unhoused population, all of these things. You all see it all. And you're working day in and day out with individuals in our community. And, I like to think about, and as a mayor, as a former mayor, we always think the government that's closest to the people are like the folks who see it all and are in contact. And you all are that extension for us. And I know that you are our front line, and you're seeing our residents and our businesses day in and day out, and you're our eyes and ears on the ground. And I just appreciate so much the partnership and the work that you do. And I appreciate my colleagues on the committee, and particularly Councilmember Balcom, for moving some of what I consider the basics of keeping our urban districts running into our base budget, so we don't even have to fight for it for other things. So thank you.
Thank you. Speaking of your dear friend doing all the great things, Councilmember Balcom.
Thank you. I really appreciate the work of the committee and, of course, the urban district team. It's been great. And I particularly want to thank Mr. Hartman-Espada for the work on the emerging urban districts. That was something that I worked very hard on in the last budget session, so I appreciate that. And also to Mr. Fosselman for helping to shepherd Germantown and our new guardian angel, so I appreciate that. But I do want to, so thank you all. I do want to just lift up something that Chair Fanny Gonzalez mentioned, and that is, for this budget, I think it's a pretty clear, straightforward, but we do need to have this long-term discussion about how we make sure that the urban districts are vibrant and sustainable long-term, both from the perspective of the parking lot districts and the general fund transfers and what that means. And I can now say how we are going to do it, assuming that Germantown makes it through this process. So I think that's really important. The urban districts are so important to our economic viability, and we just had a lengthy discussion about the economy, and I think that we need to make sure that they're sustainable and viable, and I look forward to that discussion. And from the perspective of the parking lot districts, back when all the parking lots were new and the parking garages were new, it was a cash cow. Now they need a lot of support, and there are just a lot more expenses attached to that. So I think that that's something that we need to look at. So appreciate and look forward to having that discussion. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Shout out to Bethesda Urban Partnership and to Friendship Heights Alliance, who are here as well. We're helping to make my district have vibrant urban districts and urban places. Really appreciate all of the work that you do. As somebody who lives in an urban district, I really appreciate it. Councilmember Mink.
Thank you. Well, as someone whose district is one of the beneficiaries of this new pilot program, I just really want to thank the committee for their work on this, and especially Councilmember Balcom for really helping to shepherd this through over the last year plus, and the partnership with Mr. Hartman-Espada and the executive branch is very, very much appreciated. And we will, and I'll bring in the voices of my constituents here, but as we move forward, certainly continuing to work with my colleagues to seek equity and parity for the district and for our new fledgling pilot urban district here. And I know that this effort has been a big first step forward on that exact path. So very grateful and looking forward to continue to partner with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you. The chair and Councilmember Balcom noted the need to revisit this conversation. This budget was pretty straightforward, so not a whole lot of need to tinker with the formulas, but we have had to do that recently, and the goal is not to have to do that in the future, and to have a system that's based on parking when we know more people want to enjoy those spaces outside of their cars poses the conundrum. And so I look forward to having those joint T&E and Economic Development Committee work sessions to figure this out, and look forward to working with all of you and colleagues from districts with the urban districts, which are more and more by the year, which is great. Thank you.
Councilmember Lukey.
just to wrap this up, I want to say thank you, and thank you to the committee, and I appreciate you, Ken, for your assistance, and Luisa Cardona in working with me, my office, and our team of community civic-minded folks in Olney. We have many groups. They all have the same sort of similar acronyms, but don't be fooled. They are distinct. And as we just wrapped up the Olney Days festivities, which diverted everyone's attention for a while to make sure that that all happens, I know that we are back on track to progress with this project, so I am excited. Thank you so much.
Thanks for letting me tag along with you for part of Olney Days. Appreciate it. Appreciate the weather holding off for that as well, and all the community volunteers that made that happen and make so much of this happen. So much of our urban districts are not just about the nonprofits and the hardworking staff members who make it happen, but it's community volunteers who step up to make placemaking events happen, make community events happen, make the vibrancy of our public spaces happen. So thank you to our engaged and active community. We need you, and we'll continue to need you to create vibrant urban spaces and places. With that, we have a committee recommendation before us. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. That is unanimous, 10-0. With that, colleagues, that's all the business we have for us today. And we are adjourned until 9:30 a.m. tomorrow morning to continue our budget work sessions.